All right, we are about to tackle 1,000 years of German history. It's a pretty wild story of how a tangled collection of tribes became, well, the most powerful nation in Europe. It's this epic tale of creation, total collapse, and then this incredible rebirth. Let's dive right in.
So let's start with what seems like a simple question. What is Germany? But here's the thing, the answer is completely different depending on when you ask. The Germany of 900 AD is nothing like the Germany of 1800 or 1950. For centuries, its borders, its identity, its whole reason for being, it was always changing.
So, to get our bearings, this timeline hits the big moments. We're going to start with Germanic tribes just absolutely crushing Roman legions in a dark forest. Then we'll jump to a Holy Roman Empire that lasted for like 1,000 years. Then we'll see a nation forged in war in 1871. And finally, its modern reunification in 1990. It's a massive story, so let's unpack it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We'll look at how a German identity was first created, how it got shattered by religious war, how a tough new power called Prussia rose from the ashes, how an empire was literally built by force, its absolutely catastrophic 20th century, and its final rebirth as European leader.
Let's get into it. The story of Germany doesn't start with a country or a king. It actually starts with an idea, and that idea came from its greatest rival.
Believe it or not, the whole concept of Germany kind of starts with the Romans. It was Julius Caesar who first drew a line on the map. He called the wild, unconquered lands east of the Rhine River Germania. And that border got set in stone, literally, in 9 AD at the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. This is where a coalition of Germanic tribes ambushed and wiped out 3 entire Roman legions. It stopped Rome's expansion for good and basically defined this region by its fierce independence.
Okay, flash forward a few centuries. Rome is gone, and Charlemagne's huge Frankish Empire splits apart. The eastern chunk, East Francia, eventually becomes the Holy Roman Empire, what people often call the First Reich. But, and this is super important, it was never a strong central state like England or France. The emperor was always in this constant tug-of-war with powerful local dukes and, maybe most importantly, the Pope in Rome. This idea of internal division, it's going to be a theme for like the next 1,000 years.
So you have this huge, decentralized empire, kind of held together by a shared Catholic faith. Well, that was about to be completely torn apart by one of the biggest events in European history.
In 1517, this German monk, Martin Luther, nails his famous 95 Theses to a church door. He's challenging the absolute power of the Catholic Church. And you gotta understand, this was way more than just a religious argument. It was a political earthquake. It gave all these German princes who were sick of being told what to do by the emperor and the pope the perfect excuse to break away.
And this map really shows you the split. The empire basically cracked right down the middle, along religious lines. The north and east went Protestant, while the south and west mostly stayed Catholic. And this wasn't just about how you prayed on Sunday. We're talking about political loyalty, about taxes, about power. This religious divide set the stage for a truly devastating conflict.
And here it is, the catastrophic cost of that division. The 30 Years' War, which ran from 1618 to 1648, was one of the most brutal wars Europe has ever seen. It was a vicious civil war fought along these religious and political fault lines. Some estimates say the population of the German lands dropped by a staggering 38%. It was a national trauma that left the Holy Roman Empire as just a shell of its former self, and it paved the way for a whole new order.
So out of all that devastation, the old system was broken. The emperor was weak, and inside Germany, these ambitious new states saw their chance to rise up.
After the war, the map of Germany was just a messy patchwork of over 300 independent states. But out of that chaos, 2 great powers started to dominate. You had the old imperial dynasty of Austria in the south, and this highly disciplined militaristic upstart in the north, the Kingdom of Prussia. Their rivalry over who would control Germany, known as German dualism, would define the next 2 centuries.
And the man who was going to settle this rivalry once and for all? This guy, Otto von Bismarck. As the Chancellor of Prussia, he had one single obsessive goal: unite the German states into one nation with Prussia in charge. And his method was something called realpolitik. It's basically a political philosophy that throws ideology out the window in favor of cold, hard, practical power. He wasn't some dreamy idealist, he was a master strategist.
So how exactly did Bismarck plan to unite dozens of bickering kingdoms and principalities?
Well, it wasn't going to be with speeches and votes.
This quote says it all. Bismarck looked at the failed liberal revolutions of the past and thought they were too soft. They relied on talking. He believed the only way to forge a nation was with the Prussian army. That's the iron. And with warfare, the blood. It was a ruthless vision, for sure, but it was brutally effective.
And he pulled it off in 3 brilliant calculated moves. Step 1, he actually teams up with his rival, Austria, to beat Denmark. This let him grab some territory and set a trap for his next move. Step 2, he immediately turns on Austria in a lightning-fast war, kicking them out of German politics for good. And for the final move, he provokes a war with France, correctly betting that a common enemy would make all the other German states rally to Prussia's side. Genius.
And the final power move, the ultimate flex, was where they announced this. The German Empire wasn't proclaimed in Berlin. No, it was declared in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, the historic heart of French royal power, while Prussian cannons were still shelling Paris. It was a deliberate humiliation of their oldest enemy and the birth announcement for a powerful, ambitious new nation right in the middle of Europe.
This new German empire was an industrial and military giant. But all that power, combined with a deep sense of insecurity and aggressive ambition, set the stage for the most violent century in human history.
The 20th century for Germany is just a tragic, brutal story. The empire's aggression helped spark World War I, which leads to its collapse. The fragile democracy that came next, the Weimar Republic, was crushed by economic disaster and political extremism, which opened the door for Adolf Hitler. The Nazi regime's horrifying ideology then unleashed World War II and the Holocaust, which ended in Germany's total destruction and division.
After the war, Germany as a single country just ceased to exist. It was carved up by the winning allies. The American, British, and French zones merged to become West Germany, a capitalist democracy. The Soviet zone became communist East Germany. The country literally became the front line of the Cold War, a nation split in two.
For more than 40 years, that division seemed like it would last forever. But then, in one of the most stunning turnarounds of the 20th century, everything changed.
On November 9, 1989, the unthinkable happened. The Berlin Wall, the most powerful symbol of the Cold War, came down. This one single seismic event triggered the collapse of communism in East Germany and, less than a year later, the official reunification of Germany. After 45 years apart, the nation was whole again.
And what the reunified Germany did next was basically an economic miracle. Through huge investment and sheer hard work, it didn't just recover, it became the undisputed economic engine of the European Union. I mean, just look at this. Germany's economy now makes up roughly a quarter of the entire Eurozone's GDP. That is an unbelievable transformation from the ruins of 1945.
So we end where we started, with a question. Germany has taken this incredible journey from being Europe's fractured heart to its economic engine. It's a stable democracy that carries an immense weight of history and responsibility. Its next chapter is still being written. If you found this quick dive into history interesting, we've got more in our Quick Histories playlist. Be sure to check that out, and hey, subscribe for more explainers like this one.